again, my name is Isabella Barrett, and I stand for the resolution, civil disobedience in a democracy is morally justified. Today, I will demonstrate the principle, not the negatives value of rule of law, is the better value concerning this resolution, and I will use the criterion of following one's conscience to uphold my value. I apologize that the negative team has not understood that my principle is an objective standard. And I repeated this multiple times. Some examples of these objective standards may be things like freedom, equality, or human rights. These things are easily definable and don't have a personal bent to them. Conscience, my criterion, is merely the act of choosing to uphold a certain principle. The negative team's value was rule of law, and they argued that their criterion was adherence to law. However, they have not taken into account the fact that laws cannot be the determining factor if laws are unjust. Additionally, the negative team cited the incident with George Floyd as an example for their case. However, this is an extreme case that was actually never a civil protest. The negative has used the fallacy of appeal to pity to use this example out of context. Additionally, the negative repeatedly said that I was arguing about morality. However, I'm arguing about principle. Morality and principle are two different things. Furthermore, the negative stated that my Rosa Parks example was outdated and was not applicable to the United States anymore. However, I am sharing examples of democracies, not specifically the US. They dismissed this example as a hasty generalization. We can all agree, and have agreed, that in its simplest terms, democracies are governments run by the people. But how do citizens know how they should direct the country? And how do they decide which laws to pass or which representatives to elect? Ultimately, in a democracy, the spirit of a nation is determined by the spirit of the people. Likewise, the ethics and morals of a country are defined by the morals and ethics of its citizens. So virtually, we're saying that a democracy is, as a whole, is subjective, their beliefs and values. But what happens when these citizens ignore those vital morals and ethics for the sake of the law and for the sake of obedience to the government? And what happens is that country is deprived of moral grounding. Even in a democracy, it is all too easy to blindly obey representatives and governing bodies. And when that happens, what was once a democracy can easily evolve into a monarchy or even a dictatorship. Simply, civil disobedience in a democracy is not morally justified because civil disobedience, when determined by principle and conscience, upholds the morals and ethics of the people. As C.S. Lewis once said, disobedience to conscience makes conscience blind. And so while the negative has given many examples of adverse outcomes of civil disobedience, it is not proven why civil disobedience is not morally justified. May I remind the judges that I have effectively upheld my value in today's debate and disproven the negative's attacks, proving that my value of principle is a superior value. For these reasons, I urge the judges to affirm the resolution. Civil disobedience in a democracy is morally justified.